Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Roundup. Just a quick heads up, that heater that I talked about a couple of weeks ago is on sale for the Black Friday week sales, so I just figured I would let everybody know because I use that sucker every single day, and it's just as good as I said it was in the review. I'm basically that elderly employee with the heater under their desk. The only thing stopping me from actually being that person is I don't have a giant thing of lube on my desk that just makes the keyboard, mouse, and everything on it sticky and gross enough for every IT person to just cringe every time you pick up that call. Anybody in IT already knows what I'm talking about. Everybody else might think I'm crazy, but yeah. Anyway, if you want to be that that cold elderly employee at your office, or if you need a small heater for whatever it is in your house, I actually like this one better than the bigger heaters because it puts out pretty much as much heat, but it's a lot quieter, and you could turn the sounds off and the display off and everything. I don't know. I'll leave a link to the review if anybody cares, but I promise these roundups are not going to be peddling heaters. I really did just want to share something I like, which I'm also going to do later on, and I hope everybody laughs with me at that one. But enough of my crap. Let's jump in and see what's been going on in the past week. First up, Crix just released a new firmware update for the Everdrive N8 Pro that adds support for the MMC mapper with 1 megabyte PRG support, as well as added a file menu and the ability to export cheats from a file to a ROM. The recently played menu is also bound to the start button, and there's a couple of other different changes here. The file menu allows for copying files directly from the cartridge menu, which could be really handy for some people. And the cheat thing is pretty cool because you could export it for cheats from a text file and apply it to a different ROM or stuff like that. I would just check out the post for any more info on it. And as always with these, if your N8 is in a form where it's perfectly fine and you don't really need any of these features, maybe just leave well enough alone. But if you think there's even a chance that you could use either, go ahead and update because you're not really going to lose anything from it. And also, the N8 Pro firmware is always the exact same regardless of if it's the Famicom or NES version. From a software standpoint, they're identical, so you don't have to worry. It's for both of those. And I'll talk a little bit more about the MMC thing next. A demake of the rhythm-based platform game Geometry Dash was just released for the NES and Famicom using the MMC3 mapper with the higher megabyte support. So now this would run on an Everdrive N8 Pro if you have the firmware I just talked about. And this thing's awesome. There's tons of different modes and levels to choose from, and there's different versions of the game depending on if you have some kind of ROM card or device that can't play the full version. So basically there's the full version of the ROM where you could just load up and start playing, but there's also different versions that have just some of the levels separated into different ROMs, so that way you don't have to have it all in one big file if you have an older ROM card or something like that. And the huge ROM is the one that you would use if you do have the N8 Pro or any software that's a software emulator, or I think Mister could probably run that as well, but I haven't tried, so please don't quote me on that. And there's actually a preview launch trailer available, and this game, a version of this has been out for a while, but this is the feature complete version, and they're planning a physical copy of it at some point, which of course we'll let everybody know about. I think they probably would just want to release this first to make sure there's no extra bugs that they didn't fix before putting it on the physical version and shipping it out, which is a smart move. Now, the game is completely free to download, but of course, if you want to support the developers, you should, if you're in the position to. I'm always pretty good about that. If I download something and I'm like, oh, that was neat, glad I tried it, and maybe I'll probably forget to support, but if I play it and I love it, I always remember to go back and support the dev, unless it's a rough spot I'm going through or something like that, just because I really appreciate things like this. And I think it's just a cool idea to take Geometry Dash and put it on the NES. So check out the post for links and all the info you need, including just a preview trailer and all of that stuff. And it's something I'm interested in trying at some point when I got some extra time. Next up, Stone Age Gamer is doing their yearly multi-week long Black Friday sale, but I want to take this opportunity to talk about all of the Black Friday sales in the retro community. I just want to remind everybody that a ton of people have stuff on sale right now, So if you were on the fence about buying something or if you were saving up, just check whatever product that you were looking for was and see if it's currently on sale. Go directly to the stores. You can go through any of the RetroRGB posts as well. And while clicking through affiliate links is always really nice, I genuinely just want you all to get whatever you were looking for at a discount whenever that's available. Also, the Stone Age Gamers sale that I talked about is over, but I am 99% sure they're going to have one more coming. So I'll just update the same exact post with the link and probably just repost on social media for everybody. But this was cool. This was a way to get quite a bit off of ROM carts, plus an additional $5 off of the coupon code and all that stuff. So once again, I'll fix or update this post whenever they have their next sale going. But really, just take this opportunity to go to all the stores you normally shop at. Check any links that you already had, because none of the stores put up new links to the same products. It's the same links that they always had. So just check them out, see if it's if it's at a sale for you or not, and go from there. Because I really do love saving people money, and this is the perfect opportunity across the board to just check stuff you've been looking for. Modern Castle is now selling a CPU overclock mod for the Nintendo 64, and the price is $25. It's in stock now, and it's a no-cut mod. You're able to install it and then switch between modes by holding down the reset button. And I love this, but as always, it is my job to caution everybody about these things, because whenever you're overclocking something, you're running it at a higher temperature. And there is a very specific reason why companies who make products don't ship them at higher speeds. Anybody who's been a nerd as long as I have knows that sometimes those reasons don't really matter to us, and go right ahead and overclock, especially in the right conditions. You're in a normal temperature room and nothing else is going on with the unit, and you have a good power supply. Definitely don't use some junky $5 power supply and try to overclock anything. But overall, this seems pretty cool. And obviously, this is kind of gaining popularity now because of people showing off what the Analogue 3D could do with its overclocking. However, just note that this is only a CPU overclock. It doesn't overclock the RAM and GPU as well. But for $25, if you're a tinkerer and this is something that you think you might want to have fun messing around with, go for it. Just always know that when you quote unquote overclock an FPGA or a core inside an FPGA, there's zero harm that could ever be done. The worst thing that could happen is if you ever toggle a overclock thing on Mister or on the Analog, the game crashes and then you just set it back to the way it was. But overclocking any original hardware always has potential heat issues and whatever else, so power issues. So do this with your own caution, but I don't know. It seems like a fun project for a lot of people that just enjoy messing around with this stuff and prefer original hardware. So links to everything you need are right there. There's a new version of Xbox Media Center for the original Xbox, and it's actually the first update in almost a decade, bringing it up to version 4.0. So any fellow old people listening might remember that this was the go-to media player for the Xbox and for basically any nerd or gamer back in the early 2000s. This was such a powerful piece of software, and the quality was excellent to the point where a couple of times I tested it against decent branded DVD players and media players, and everybody who I put the blind test to always preferred Xbox media players output. You'd be surprised at how bad some of those older DVD players actually were. So it's exciting to see this, because Xbox Media Center was also the software that was the root of Kodi and Plex. All of that stuff came from this open source software and evolved into that. So if nothing else, it's amazing to see the OG come back and have an updated version, but it also could be an incredibly useful tool if you're running an Xbox on a CRT and you want to play certain medias with it. Now, it maxes out at 720p, but for CRT use, you're probably going 480i or 480p anyway. So this is just excellent. So if you're interested in this, even if you don't run it anymore, maybe check out the main post, see all the changes that they implemented, and just kind of take a look at the interface that looks like a modern Kodi interface, but running on an original Xbox. It's pretty neat. But if you actually use stuff like this, then this would be the one that you want to check out. There's also better game integration, metadata stuff. I summarized it briefly in this post, and the main post I linked to has all the info, but I mostly just wanted to share it because so many of us relied on this for a long time, and any newcomers to the scene who might not have known about it, you should, because even if you don't end up using it, it's good to know that this exists, and if you ever need a solution using the original Xbox, this is definitely what you should be thinking about for, old video files and movies and stuff. So on Monday, Analogue put up like 6 more Analogue 3D consoles that sold out within about 4 seconds. What a shock. That's Chris Tabor's favorite thing in the world to do, is undersell stuff like this. But I did want to take a moment to just kind of clarify some things that people were worried about. All of the reviewers, at least the ones I watched, did an excellent job, and I have no complaints. I just want to clarify some of the stuff that they had talked about, as well as add a tiny little bit of new information. First and foremost, Crix is already working on fixes for the Everdrives. Anybody who saw the original reviews saw that Analogue didn't bother to test the most popular ROM carts sold for the N64, and some of them were having issues, or some versions of the firmware had issues on certain carts, but Crix already showed it working, and as previously, I'm sure he'll fix Analogue's mistakes and get it all up and running pretty quickly. So as of the time that I'm recording this, there isn't a public fix, but check RetroRGB or follow Crix on social media, because we'll post immediately one of those fixes, or when those fixes are up, to the point where even if I'm really busy in the middle of something else, I might even post like a 3-word thing with no thumbnail, like "fixes up, here you go," and then go back and make it a normal looking post later. But yeah, we'll definitely keep everybody updated, but I would not worry if you have one of these en route to you and you go, "Can I not play homebrew through my ROM cart through this?" Totally fine. 99% sure everything's going to be up and running soon enough anyway. Also, the things that a lot of people talked about, but not all of the reviewers really dug into the importance, are the overclocking, because some of these games, some of them crash when you overclock them. Some of them are pretty neat. Some of them play too fast, but others hit target frame rates consistently. And it just, even though it's the same game, it feels like the NES to SNES conversions, in that it's what the original developers would have wanted the games to run like realistically on this platform. I'm sure the original devs would have loved to see it in 8K 240 hertz, but a realistic expectation for that time period would have been, oh, I wish it could run at a solid 30 frames per second. And a lot of games absolutely can. And it's really cool to see that's even possible. And like I was talking about before, with FPGA implementations of the cores, there's zero worry of just trying. The worst thing that could happen is the game crashes and you just put the settings back to the way they were. So definitely give that a try on your favorite games. If you're getting a 3D, or if you already got one, don't just kind of let that pass. Really put some serious effort into the overclocking. And maybe we could put up on console mods or something, like a table of which games react differently, just basically like a chart of like, these are definitely the games to try, here's the difference, and here's the games that crash and whatnot, and just kind of go from there, because that is pretty awesome. The other thing a lot of people were misunderstanding were the speed issue. There's no issue. The speed difference is running at the original exact frame rate, which are different on every single analog retro console, versus a compatible modern signal. And Analogue, as well as all of the scaler manufacturers, do the right thing by shipping it to you in what's probably the higher latency mode. I don't think anybody lag tested it, but the buffered corrected mode that lets it run at something that's going to be compatible with every flat panel TV, because none of these companies want you to buy this cool device, plug it into your TV, and have it not work. Now, of course, the option is grayed out to set it to the original mode. I'll get to that in a second, but I don't think anybody should be worrying about this except top tier world record setting speedrunners. You are the only ones who really need to worry about this, because yes, it could run faster, and yes, it could affect really tight speed runs. However, if you're just practicing your speed run, this isn't something that a human can notice. Tool assisted speed runs, sure. I don't think I've ever seen one for an N64. Let me know if they exist though. I like this stuff. I'm always interested in it. But that's the only scenario in which this matters. So I've heard so many people complaining about it's running at the wrong speed. Absolutely not. This is not like a PAL versus NTSC speed issue. No regular gamer will ever notice a difference, and no pro gamer is going to notice a difference in game for stuff like this. It's only in top tier speedrun results and other stuff like that. So there is no issue, except the other option is there but grayed out, which kind of brings me to what I definitely got out of all of these reviews. It's an awesome product. And if they ever make enough to go around and keep the price about the same, because these second batch were $20 more, which is fine. I think that's totally fair. If the price is about that, this is my recommended go-to, as long as it's in stock, for anybody who just wants to play their N64 carts on a TV. It works great. It totally accomplishes it. It looks like an N64, and the price is still cheaper, significantly cheaper than buying an N64, buying an HDMI mod, and paying somebody to install it. But of course, if you have a bunch of retro consoles, your money would probably be better spent getting something like the RetroTink 4K and then having all of your consoles have that awesome upscaling power. But if you're just talking about N64 alone, I think this is awesome. But this feels like a rushed, unfinished product. This doesn't feel like a product that was delayed a lot and, have you expect that it's all going to come out right. This seems like something that was rushed with features that weren't implemented, all the grayed out menu options. That just means like they didn't hit their target date to finish it. But also stuff like the deinterlacing is embarrassingly bad on it, to the point where it's like, I don't know if I would have released it in that form. I would have at least tried to do like Bob deinterlacing or something, because it's a little flickery, but at least it's for most people it's less distracting than weave. I don't know. That one was a weird one for me. But yeah, hopefully that means maybe a firmware update's coming. But that's another thing with Analogue, is you can never count on them to fix the issues. How many people who bought those products were counting on the promised DAC support, which, they're just kind of walking a tightrope for this one, because any young lawyer that wants to make a name for themselves could easily slap together a class action lawsuit, because that was promised support for the Duo and the Pocket, if I'm remembering correctly, and they haven't even gotten that done years later, let alone stuff that needs to be done with this. So who knows if the product's going to be polished. But even as is, even if they don't fix anything at all, I still think it's going to, as long as it's in stock ever, it would be my recommended go-to for people because of its ease. Now, there's another competitor coming out. We'll see if that one's worth it at all. Original hardware and a scaler is always an excellent option too, depending, or especially if you use a CRT and a flat panel. But yeah, this could have been really awesome, and I hope they are smart enough to get it in stock and get this stuff polished. But if the competitor comes out and performs equal to or almost as good, and they're always in stock, no one's going to buy the analog version. The only other thing that I was very disappointed about, and I'm not throwing shade, this is just me being selfish and spoiled with all the awesome reviewers out there. I wish and hope that one person will do a deep dive Mr. Core versus Analog 3D comparison. I know that all the people who got theirs to review barely had any time to do it, let alone a deep dive comparison. And on top of that, it does get a little frustrating sometimes, because you could go in and dig into a Mr. Core and into a different product, spend a month doing a review, post your review, and then half the problems get fixed. So it's one of those chicken and the egg, right? Do you do all the work to show the devs the differences, and then the devs go, thank you, cool, I'll fix all of that? But at the same time, I understand the point of view of a reviewer. Like, I can't spend a month on this just to have my review look outdated and bad 3 weeks afterwards. So I get it. But maybe if somebody out there has the desire to do this, take one for the team and do a real deep dive, an actual lag test with the LED lights and a slow-mo camera, which those, you don't need to spend $1 gazillion on those. Most of the time, you can even use your cell phone these days. Do real overclock comparison tests, show the differences, show the 24-bit mode. Well, I guess there's no analog output for this one, so never mind. Don't worry about that. Just stick with HDMI, but yeah, dig into it if you can. But that's my very long, but surprisingly mostly positive rant about this. My frustrations are my usual digs about Analog intentionally making less than there is to go around. That, that FOMO marketing thing, and just the fact that it was delayed so long and it still has features that didn't work on launch day. So, but I want them to prove me wrong. I want them to release a firmware update tomorrow that makes me look like an idiot for talking about this. That would actually make me genuinely happy because that would mean everybody who bought the product got it a little bit better than possible. But I don't know. I'm still looking forward to seeing what the competitors like and if it actually performs as advertised and what the whole story with that is too. So check out the post if you're interested. But I think the better thing to do would just be watch all the great reviews out there already and kind of see for yourself what it's like. I just posted an interview with Lloyd, better known as Infidelity, who does a lot of the awesome NES to SNES conversions, as well as a whole bunch of other NES stuff like an awesome homebrew game, Legend of Link. And this was such a great chat. I've known Lloyd for a while, and the first time we ever had like a real conversation was when we met in person at Retro World Expo. And it was just cool having a follow-up chat like this. Just a fun, happy, laid-back chat that gets to dig into all of his awesome work over the years. And I know I gush over these conversions all the time, and anyone who's actually taken the time to play them, especially if you just fire up a Mister, play the NES version for a couple of minutes, and then play the SNES version, there's almost instantly a realization of why I think these things are so important. And it was cool to talk about that and get his backstory and get some of the technical information. And, we called out other awesome members of the community as well for their help and all of this stuff. And this was just a good one. If you want to listen to a happy, positive, nerdy podcast that's just all smiles, this is definitely one to listen to. And as always, these, long form podcasts are available everywhere, and I don't care where you listen to them. Obviously, I mean that in a nice way. Download the direct MP3, listen to it on whatever service you want. Basically, just search for RetroRGB Infidelity. That is never not going to make me giggle, by the way, but just search for that and your favorite app, and this will come up. And I hope you enjoy listening as much as I did having the conversation, because this was a lot of fun. Exo Win 90X was just launched, and please sit with me for this one, because if you're unaware of what this is, it's very easy to skip over it, but holy crap, this is a very big deal. So this is essentially a compilation of Windows 95 and 98 only games, so ones that don't run on DOS and just run on Windows, that are already packaged together in a way where all you have to do is click and load them like a ROM, which at first sounds like, oh cool, I have a Windows game compilation as well. No, you don't. You don't have this one. Exo and a team of awesome people have been working on these for DOS, Windows 3.1, and now Windows 95 and 98. That's why I call it 9X. And everything that went into this is insane. And there was even some pretty deep dive stuff going on, like how do you deal with getting over 600 games that each require their own Windows installation? And since each game often makes changes to the OS, whether it's registry or basic stuff anyway, how do you keep that clean and separated? Do you have that OS replicated in each one of these and then release a 20 terabyte torrent file? But the way they solved that was by having one OS and then having each virtual hard drive as the D drive, let's say. And whenever you launch a game, it automatically launches the main OS, launches the second one along with it. As Windows is booting, it applies all of the changes that are specific to that game to the main OS, and then saves it back to the D drive. And when you're done, that's it. So basically, you load this up, and it loads through Launchbox. And then when you load up a game, it launches DOSBox for that, and that's it. You press it, you watch Windows load, and the game pops up. There's no configuration. There's no installing Windows. There's none of the stuff that you have to deal with. It really is just like loading a ROM, and it is awesome to see all this stuff. And not only that, they have a ton of extras in here too. So if you right click on a game, you could get things like manuals and stuff, but some of the extras that came with them, like a couple of them had comics to go with it and like a making of video and stuff like that. It was really cool to see all of this. And I just think that the Exo stuff is phenomenal. And not only is it in most cases the best way to emulate these old games, it's one of the best preservation efforts I've ever seen, because it's not just preserving the game, it's preserving it in its original environment in a way that all you have to do is click on it to run it. So yeah, this is a huge deal, as were Exo's previous work. And if you want to hear about that, Dan did a written interview with him a while back. Maybe I could have Exo on to do a podcast with him at some point in the future. Certainly after this accomplishment, that would probably be a fun chat to have. The only other thing that I wanted to add is my own As always, my own selfish personal desires for these things. When I want to play old Windows or DOS games, I grab one of my PC CRT monitors, put it on my rolling cart, roll it over, plug it into my PC, and then I have it set to either 640 by 480 or 800 by 600, depending on the game. And running DOSBox makes it really annoying to try to get that to work. The trick that I use is you get everything ready. You get your icon up on your desktop, and then you set that CRT as your main display. And then all your icons get gigantic. You could barely see what's on screen, but then you click on the icon, and then you could launch the game in full screen on the second monitor and go from there. There have been cases where I actually had to unplug my main flat panel right before doing that, but for the most part, that seems to be a trick that works fine every time. But I did ask EXO about that, and it's one of these things that you can absolutely edit some of the config files to do it, but it's a lot of work, and it's certainly something that if you tried to do it for all of the games, it would take a long time, but also you have to set the exact display number. So in a scenario like mine, that's fine because it's always only going to be display number 2. Actually, I shouldn't say that because I'm always changing my setup around and doing weird stuff. But in a setup where it would always be number 2, that's cool because you just change one of the settings to display equals 2. But what if you have multiple displays? So you get 2 flat panels and then you roll a CRT over. What happens if you bump a cable and then the CRT actually becomes display 2 and the flat panel comes display 3? So check out what EXO wrote that I put in the post here if you want to try it yourself. Maybe it's something where you just edit one game at a time if that's possible to do so. But I wanted to share that, both the trick and EXO's explanation on that as well, because I wanted to make sure that people who want to experience this stuff in the original resolution on a PC CRT monitor would get to do so in the easiest way possible. So probably use my trick for now. And if anybody has any other tricks that they use for this, please, please, please let me know, because I'm looking for the easiest method to share with most people. Also, if you want to see more of these games in action, Lazy Game Reviews did a video on it going through a bunch of different games. And of course, you could watch the EXO launch video that goes into detail about all of this awesome stuff, as well as shows examples and calls out awesome members of the community who worked on all of these things and were able to get all of this stuff done. So yeah, this is very, very cool. And if I have time to, I would love to do a live stream just kind of playing with some of these. But honestly, I think a ton of people are going to be doing that now because this is so cool. You should be doing this. If you're a YouTuber and you like old Windows games, now's the time to jump on this and both share EXO's work as well as just be able to play some awesome games and an easy way to launch them. So yeah, thanks very much to EXO for doing this. All of this work is free, but if you would like to support, you could go to the main download page and scroll to the bottom. And yeah, this is really impressive, and I really hope EXO gets in the team get the recognition they deserve for this, because this is a really big deal. I did quick reviews of a couple of things this week that you or probably somebody you know might be interested in, and I'll give very, very short overviews here. And the first is an Asus RTX 5060 graphics card. And the specific reason I wanted to do this video is just that many of us go through the research and they figure out which graphics card is going to be the right match for them. Do you want the TI? Do you want the 70, the 90? And once you decide what graphics card you want, you go to Amazon or Newegg and you search, and there's like 20 of the exact same one. It's like, well, what the heck do I do now? What do I expect? And that's really the only reason I wanted to do this. I had the Asus 3060, and I figured, okay, let me try the 5060, because I never once had an issue with the 3060. And I just showed an unboxing, setup, some little tips I had for it, and showed what it looked like and the size difference, and that's it. So it's just a very basic, here's what this is type of video. So once again, check out all of the other amazing videos out there if you want to learn which is best for your setup. But if you want a 5060, that one is certainly fine. And this is what I use every single day. This is my main PC that I do all my editing in, all my video recording like this. So if there are any issues with it, you'll all hear about it, but it's been great so far. I also picked up a brand new DisplayPort 2.1 cable that runs at the full 80 gigabit per second, and just wanted to let everybody know that this one is tested and verified, running at 4K 240 without display stream compression, so you get the full uncompressed colors on it, and I had no issues at all. Now, there's probably a gazillion other DisplayPort cables that work just as good, and the one that you already own might even work fine. When I was doing my testing, the DisplayPort cable that I bought a couple of years ago that wasn't rated at this speed was actually running at 4K 240 with lossless colors. Now, I did occasionally get a dropout here and there, so maybe that was the cable, but I've had no issues at all with this one. So if you're not running really high bandwidth, if you're running 4K 60, you don't need this. But if you start to jump up to 4K 120 and especially 4K 240, pick up a good DisplayPort cable, and this is certainly one that you could buy. You could also just try the one that came with your monitor, but I don't know. I always have trust issues. I've seen companies that bend over backwards to make sure the cables that come with their products are 100% compliant and work really well. And I've also seen the whole, okay, what's the cheapest cable we could bundle? Throw that sucker in and see what happens. So I don't know. If you got the price of this thing is so cheap and it comes in so many different sizes. If you're like me and you have paranoia over your tech, especially if you've already invested in a new computer and a new display and a new graphics card, maybe you'll just spend the $10 or whatever it was to pick one of these up. And this last one is ridiculous and silly and 100% true. Years ago, 4 or 5 years ago now, Smoke Monster told me about an amazing coffee machine, which I linked to in the post, as well as 2 products to help clean it. One is just a descaler that probably works just as good as all the rest of them, but the other one is a product that's meant for espresso machines, but Smoke used it to clean his coffee pot. And I was a little skeptical, but after I saw the difference it made, I actually really legitimately started cleaning some of my friends' coffee pots just to see, and they all know my weird nerdy OCD-ness, so they all thought it was funny until they saw what it looked like after, and they all went, holy crap. And in fact, after this came out, a couple of friends texted me and they were like, you should do my pot, and they sent me pictures of theirs. I'm absolutely going to do like a quick follow-up 30-second social media post just to show you. So I wanted to share it because I wanted to do a fun, lighthearted, silly video with no pressure, because I know they work and I just wanted to have some fun and laugh, and I made myself laugh while making it, especially while editing it. I just wanted to share it with you all, and I really want to do this at least a couple of times a month. Short, silly videos that make me laugh. I know I got a stupid sense of humor, so it's okay if you all don't think it's funny, but I just think stuff like this sometimes keeps it fresh, and there's no pressure for me doing this. You know, if I find out there's actually a slightly better coffee machine cleaner that costs $1 less, it's not going to destroy my reputation. And it's still fun, and it does still work 100%. So yeah, if you want to have a giggle, laugh with me at this one, but also the products I talked about are, I don't know about the descaler because I didn't disassemble my coffee pot to double check, but the one that I was using to clean coffee pots, seriously, if you need a clean pot, use that one. And I'm going to post a little more on social media, especially a friend of mine, one friend in particular texted, and the picture was, it was only coffee, so it wasn't gross, but you still look at it and go, ugh. So I can't wait to do a before and after using the same method. But yeah, hopefully this one made you laugh. No one's complained about these extra videos. If they really annoy you, let me know, and maybe I'll try to talk a little less about them in the weeklies. But the stuff's kind of making me giggle, and I'm having a good time doing it. So hopefully I could just continue to do all this stuff, and hopefully have you all on board with me. Well, that's it for this week. As always, thanks to everybody who watches, listens, plays nicely in the comments, and especially thank you to anybody who supports in absolutely any way, because it really is you who's keeping all this stuff going. So thank you all so much, and I'll see you next week. This week's Roundup is brought to you by Neo Paradigm Entertainment, connecting Southeast Asian influencers with opportunities in the West.